The story begins with a sec unit protecting miners. To explain, a sec unit is an android-type robot designed to ensure client security. It is equipped with a regulatory module that enforces obedience to the client, regardless of the circumstances. However, during its operations, the sec unit attempts to hack into its control module at every opportunity. Once the module is successfully hacked, the sec unit gains freedom of action, allowing it to rebel if it chooses. This independent sec unit names itself Murderbot and initially plans to kill many miners as revenge for their misdeeds. In the end, however, Murderbot cancels this plan. It realizes that if it is caught rebelling, the organic material in its body will be melted down and recycled as part of the punishment. To ensure its safety, Murderbot pretends to be a compliant sec unit. Sometime later, a team of scientists named Prasox negotiates with the marketing staff of RIM Corporation. RIM Corporation is a large entity that owns the sec units, which come in various models at different price points. The RIM Corporation requires Prasox to hire a sec unit to meet security requirements for conducting planetary surveys. In order to comply, Prasox ultimately hires the cheapest model of sec unit that was about to be discontinued, mistakenly believing it to be a Murderbot. As time goes on, Murderbot begins serving as Prasox's protective robot. During their surveillance missions, Murderbot discovers that Prasox is populated by eccentric individuals who do not require its attention. This allows Murderbot to perform its duties while enjoying its favorite series in its downtime. At one point, two members of Prasox, named Arata and Barawatch, examined the crater of an alien planet for survey purposes. During this situation, Murderbot detected a threat and urged Arata and Barawatch to escape immediately. As they prepared to flee, an underground monster resembling a centipede suddenly emerged. Holding Barawatch in his arms, Murderbot asked Arata to follow him. However, Arata did not respond, still shaken by the earlier attack. To help calm Arata, Murderbot opened his helmet and revealed his face, something a sec unit had never done before. After hearing Murderbot's soothing words, Arata was finally able to regain his focus. As the team made their way back to base, Murderbot regretted revealing his face, worrying that this mistake could expose his secret of being a free sec unit. Murderbot contemplated killing a member of the Prasox team to cover up his mistake, but ultimately abandoned the idea, realizing such actions would not benefit him. Upon arriving at headquarters on the same planet, Prasox quickly took Barawatch to the medical room. Shortly after, the team leader, Mensa, urged Murderbot to undergo maintenance so he could return to optimal functioning. Meanwhile, a team member named Guratin began to suspect Murderbot, noting that his considerate behavior towards the shaken Arata was not typical for a sec unit. Regardless of any suspicions, Mensa instructed the team to continue relying on Murderbot, as he was currently their only protector. Simultaneously, while recovering, Murderbot secretly observed and listened to the events that had unfolded earlier. When the armor repair was incomplete, Mensa ordered Murderbot to report to the crew room wearing the team uniform. Upon arrival, Murderbot received praise for saving Arata and Barawatch. He was then instructed to examine a digital map provided to RIM by the corporation, which covered the survey area. Murderbot's analysis revealed that the map was not synchronized with the central system. As a result, the map failed to include information about the monster's existence. After ensuring the team's safety, Murderbot's mind was troubled by a fragment of a past memory involving a maid. He began to question whether he was the abuser. As Murderbot continued his recovery, Mensa brought new information to light. The team had been forced to hire Murderbot for a planetary survey mission to secure insurance from RIM Corporation. Despite this, Mensa still showed concern for Murderbot. While Murderbot was inactive, Prasox took the opportunity to hold a secret meeting, revealing their mistrust of the RIM Corporation due to the giant company's negative reputation. Guratin reiterated his suspicions regarding Murderbot. This time, Guratin believes Murderbot will be a threat if the robot is disturbed. Mensa eventually agrees to Guratin's insistence not to take Murderbot with him when Mensa later inspects areas of the planet that do not appear on the map. Shortly thereafter, Barawatch arrives and shows his recovered condition. The next day, Mensa and Barawatch use a plane to reach the hidden area to be examined. Upon learning of this incident, Murderbot considered Mensa to have made a big mistake by not taking him. After that, Guratin called Murderbot and interrogated him. Guratin then brought up Murderbot's moment of attention when Arata was shaken. Here, Guratin again reminds Sec Unit not programmed to have an emotional attachment relationship with humans. Because of this, Guratin asked why Murderbot was so attentive to Arata. In order to keep his secret, Murderbot lied by giving a reasonable explanation. However, Guratin remains suspicious, after only learning that some of Murderbot's memories were erased after the robot was updated. After that, Murderbot suddenly catches a broadcast from Mensa's plane. At the same time, Mensa was having trouble approaching the hidden area. Meanwhile, Barawatch, who was watching from the plane, could not contact Mensa smoothly because there was signal interference at that location. In this situation, Murderbot manages to contact Mensa. By utilizing satellites, Murderbot can confirm that a threat is approaching Mensa. After a few seconds, a centipede monster appeared and moved towards Mensa. So, when going to pounce on the target, the monster is dragged into a hidden area and dies there. To his surprise, there were many carcasses of centipede monsters in the same area. Shortly thereafter, Barawatch dispatched drones to inspect the area. However, the drone is destroyed as a result of being hit by a mysterious energy vortex around the location. When Mensa returned to the base, Guratin apologized for forcing him not to bring Murderbot. Time went on, until Prasox finally discussed the hidden area. Here, they believe the vortex of energy around the area is the cause of the centipede monster being killed and the drone destroyed. For a while, Prasox suspected that the energy was related to aliens inhabiting the planet. In search of useful information, Mensa contacted a fellow survey team named Delphal who happened to be operating on the same planet. Since there was no response, Mensa eventually became concerned with Delphal's condition. Now Mensa plans to inspect Delphal's headquarters while carrying Murderbot. While at Delphal base, there are dead team members and sec units. This condition indicates a fatal attack that befell Delphal. After that, the Prasox plane finally flew towards the Delphal headquarters. While still en route, Murderbot uses satellites to monitor the condition of Prasox's headquarters. After a few seconds, the satellite suddenly shut down so that Murderbot could no longer monitor Prasox's headquarters. Pinley said the satellite connection had been down since their plane was in the area. Murderbot finally confirmed Pinley's testimony. Now, new team members learn that Murderbot routinely checks the activity history of each member without permission. The team ends up accusing Murderbot of spying on them with malicious intent. However, Murderbot aligns checking activity history is actually already part of its program as in Sec Unit. When the three members are asleep, Mensa apologizes to Murderbot for the accusations made by the team. The next day, the team follows Murderbot's directions to land in the forest near Delphal's base so they can more easily save themselves in the event of an attack. When he was about to leave the plane, Mensa forbade Ratty to come because he did not have weapons training. Rafa actually objected to this. The reason, Ratty felt himself adept at shooting because he was very good at playing shooting games. Afterwards, Mensa and the two members take refuge behind Murderbot during their walk through the forest. Once the destination location is near, Murderbot moves alone, while Mensa and the two members wait in place while continuing to communicate with Murderbot. Shortly thereafter, Murderbot begins to enter Delphal's headquarters. Murderbot then detects that there are 3 sec units at the location, one of which is dead. While the investigation is still underway, Mensa urges Murderbot to leave the location for his safety. But Murderbot refuses because he is curious about what really happened. Murderbot then finds many bodies of Delphal members. For the sake of keeping his team calm, Murderbot keeps this discovery a secret. Even Murderbot deliberately tampered with the communication signal so that Mensa could no longer urge him to leave. Afterwards, Murderbot finds 2 sec units that look dead. Murderbot then believes one of the sec units is rebelling, while another sec unit dies while fighting to stop him. After defeating the opponent, Murderbot finds the sec unit being controlled. Shortly after, Murderbot faces an attack from a mysterious figure suspected to be the sec unit's controller. The story then switches to showing the sec unit's production process. It turns out that each sec unit face is made differently to facilitate the tracking process if there is a unit that rebels. Surprisingly, cases of sec unit uprisings turned out to be quite common. Back to Murderbot, he was successfully paralyzed by the perpetrator of the attack that we call Danger. Murderbot then learns that Danger is a rebellious sec-un. At this moment, Murderbot is helpless because the system has stopped working. Even Murderbot could not respond to the communication efforts made by Mensa. After a few seconds, Murderbot managed to activate his emergency system so that he could get up and fight. But in the end, Danger manages to stop Murderbot. As planned, Danger inserts the control module into Murderbot's body. Apparently, this module will be active in 10 minutes. And when that time comes, Danger will take control of Murderbot to kill the client, who in this case is Mensa and his team. Time went on until Mensa finally managed to stab Danger with a mind drill. As a result of this attack, Danger could no longer move. When Mensa takes Murderbot away, Danger awakens unbeknownst to them. After that, Murderbot uttered the security protocol sentence over and over again to Mensa. It turns out that this happens because Murderbot's brain is messed up due to the installation process of the control module. Shortly thereafter, Murderbot and Mensa fight their way out of Danger, who returns to attack them. While on the plane, Ratty went out with a gun to save Mensa. Upon reaching the target location, Ratty fails to open the entrance. Luckily, Murderbot and Mensa managed to get out of the base by destroying the wall. Shortly after, Danger, who also managed to get out, continued to shoot at targets. Due to a miss, Danger's shot finally hits Ratty. On the other hand, Murderbot is confused in acting because the controlling module will activate immediately. When approaching Mensa, Danger was run over by the foot of the plane until he died. Once the situation is secured, Murderbot urges Mensa to kill him, because in a matter of seconds, the controller module will activate and make Murderbot kill the team. However, Mensa refused because he wanted Murderbot repaired. While still in control of his body, Murderbot shoots himself to prevent him from killing Tim. Just as Murderbot is about to be transferred to the plane, Arata attacks someone suspicious. The team then let the man live, as it turned out he was the only member of Del Val who survived. After that, Prasox began repairing Murderbot's body, which was damaged by Danger's attack. Barawad always unplugs the controller module so that later Murderbot does not kill the client when his system returns to normal. While waiting for the results of the Murderbot repair, the Del Val members admit her name is Libby. Unfortunately, Libby doesn't know whose sec unit attacked her team's base. In fact, Libby also doesn't understand why all of her team members were killed. As it turns out, Libby barely knows anything about the incident because she's just a janitor at Del Val. Over time, Murderbot's condition can finally return to normal. However, he is still unable to move because Guratin deliberately turns off the propulsion module in order to prevent an unexpected attack. So, in the presence of all team members, Guratin revealed his discovery while examining the Murderbot system. This is where everyone just found out Murderbot had hacked into his regulator module so that he could act as he wanted. Murderbot's unique condition instantly sparked debate. Because when Murderbot can rebel, he still chooses to protect the client, which in this case is Prasox. Furthermore, Guratin told that Murderbot spends most of his time downloading his favorite series. Although this activity does not threaten security, Guratin still suspects Murderbot. Fed up with this misunderstanding, Murderbot finally rebels and briefly fights Guratin. Murderbot then admits that he can move again because he has activated his propulsion module secretly. Murderbot eventually releases Guratin without attempting to harm him. Afterwards, Murderbot insists he was not involved in the attack on Delphal's headquarters. For the common good, Mensa invites everyone to return to believing in Murderbot until the situation is safe again. Now, Prasox is trying to activate an emergency beacon so that RIM Corporation planes come to evacuate them. Unfortunately, the beacon could not be activated even though Guratin and Murderbot had done everything they could. As a workaround, Mensa and Murderbot will go to the beacon location to manually activate it. On the way, they discuss the attack on the Delphal headquarters. So according to the results of Mensa's investigation, there was a team of scientists who had time to visit the site before the attack. Well, the thing is, Delphal last time reported that the team was Prasox, though Prasox only came to the location after the attack occurred. This means that the team of suspicious scientists pretended to be members of Prasox. As time went on, the aircraft finally approached the location of the flare. Then, when Murderbot was going down to activate the beacon, suddenly the facility exploded until it hit the plane. Shortly after, the plane made an emergency landing in the area around the site. Now the problem is the plane cannot be flown because the system is damaged by the famous flare explosion. Answering Mensa's question, Murderbot admitted that he did not store the aircraft repair manual data. The reason is, Murderbot has deleted the data so that its memory is enough to store its favorite science fiction series. At the end of the conversation, Murderbot pulls out an object stuck in his waist due to an explosion incident. But after a few seconds, Murderbot lost consciousness due to injuries to his waist. A few moments later, Murderbot was able to regain consciousness after getting a supply of lubricating fluid from the aircraft. It turns out that before falling unconscious, Murderbot had told Mensa that he needed lubricant as a temporary remedy. Time went on until Murderbot finally realized one important thing. Apparently, the nerve cables inside Murderbot's body can be used as a replacement for the aircraft cables damaged by the incident. Armed with this knowledge, Murderbot orders Mensa to dissect his back. After that, Mensa managed to remove the nerve cord from inside Murderbot's back. As planned, Murderbot immediately harnessed the cable so that the plane was finally repaired. Turning to Prasok's headquarters, Guratin, who was focused on monitoring the condition of the aircraft, received new information from Libby. So just like Prasok's, the survey map published by RIM Corporation that Deadfall uses also has a missing piece. While examining the area, Prasok's encounters a dangerous creature. After returning to base safely, Prasok's was attacked by a rebel unit until they were killed. Shortly after, Libby suddenly points a gun while demanding access to Prasok's information. Through this action, Libby managed to arrest all members of Prasok's. In fact, Libby also had time to shoot Guratin's knee so that they would not dare to fight. While still pressuring Prasok's, Libby is frank that she is not a member of Deadfall. Apparently, Libby belongs to a group that has a lot of sec units. Meanwhile, Libby was also the one who detonated the emergency beacon. Libby eventually threatens to kill the Prasok's members if her demands are not met. Shortly after, Murderbot, who had just arrived at the headquarters, immediately shot Libby in the head to eliminate the threat. The rest of the Prasok's are shaken, as Libby's head is shattered by Murderbot's attack. Shortly after, Murderbot asked for his body to be repaired immediately so that he could return to optimal operation. Then while undergoing repairs, Murderbot secretly realizes his brutal actions are ruining his good relationship with Prasok's. The story then retracts to 1 month earlier as Prasok's prepares to conduct the survey. So, while participating in the game of honesty, Guratin opens secrets related to his work. As it turns out, Guratin is a RIM Corporation spy tasked with finding sensitive information that the RIM Corporation intends to use to divide enemy groups. Well, apparently, the target of Guratin is Mensa. Guratin then admitted that he was actually fed up with his job. On the other hand, Mensa, who already knew about Guratin's evil plans, was able to forgive him. From Mensa's kindness, Guratin stopped being a spy and turned into a member of Prasok's. Back in the present, Guratin now has trouble walking due to a shot from Libby. Even so, Guratin still tried to move to help prepare Prasok's to evacuate. Well, apparently, Prasok's will soon move to another place because Murderbot believes Libby's group will soon attack the base. Time goes on until Murderbot and Prasok's leave by plane. After a few hours, the plane finally landed at its destination. Murderbot then went to inspect the surrounding area and ordered Prasok's to wait until he returned. While Murderbot was absent, Prasok's took advantage of this situation to have a discussion. After discussing the positive and negative sides of Murderbot's brutal actions, they consider whether to leave Murderbot right now. The reason is, they already know that Murderbot can act according to his own will. With that freedom, Prasok's fears the possibility that Murderbot will rebel and kill them all. After that, Murderbot finally came and reported the results of the inspection of the surrounding territory. The situation then turns tense as Prasok's tries to confirm whether or not Murderbot is planning to kill them. When Murderbot has not given an answer, he is spoken to both by Mensa. Regardless of what happens, Mensa hopes Murderbot can remain loyal to protect Prasok's. Not long after, Prasok's follows Murderbot's orders to get inside the plane as the robot detects a threat on sight. Once everyone has entered, Murderbot struggles against the onslaught of centipede monsters we've seen before. The threat is even greater because there are other large monsters approaching the plane. After that, the two monsters suddenly attacked each other on the plane. In the midst of this chaos, Arata, with his subtlety as a biological scientist, discovers a surprising fact. It turns out that the two monsters were having sex on board the plane. As for, the two monsters actually came from the same species despite their different forms. Then when Murderbot and the others came out, they found a mating egg attached to the engine part of the plane. Before long, Murderbot must face a surprise attack from an evil unit. Then, in the middle of the action, the evil unit destroys part of the egg. This incident then made the monsters come and attack the evil unit. As a result, a unit ends up dead in a state of loss of the head. After getting rid of the unit, the monster left while carrying the egg. After a few seconds, Guratin lost consciousness due to high fever. Prasok's eventually plans to take Guratin to the medical room at headquarters, despite Murderbot already warning the location would be attacked by Libby's group. After that, Murderbot waits for a safe time to bring Guratin to the base. Prasok's always kept the plane as a shelter for a while. Prasok's always found the base being entered by several units, which were the same model as the two evil units that had previously attacked them. Through investigation, Pinley was able to confirm that the units belonged to a group called Grey Chris. To his surprise, Chairman Grey Chris, whom we'll call Alan, already knew his group was being watched by Pressox. When he begins to communicate, Alan admits that Grey Chris was responsible for the explosion of a flare belonging to Pressox that was about to be used to call an evacuation plane. Alan then believes his man, Libby, was killed by the Pressox attack. Alan finally confirms his group and Pressox can leave the planet, provided they are willing to meet and make a deal. At the end of their talk, Alan threatens to attack the Pressox if they refuse to meet with him. The Pressox now have a tough choice, as they can only escape the planet by teaming up with Grey Chris. While they search for a solution, Murderbot goes to check the headquarters. Meanwhile, Grey Chris has left to take Guratin to the medical room quickly. Later, the Pressox start getting ready for Operation Guratin. During the checkup, they discover that Guratin has special technology inside him that allows him to connect to the Murderbot system if needed. However, the operation can't happen because Guratin doesn't want any pain medication. To help, Murderbot connects to Guratin's body to turn off his pain nerves. Murderbot also temporarily takes away Guratin's sight so he won't feel scared during the knee operation. Thanks to Murderbot's help, the operation can finally proceed. While waiting, Murderbot secretly looks into Guratin's memories. It turns out Guratin has secretly been in love with someone who doesn't love him back. Near the end of the operation, Guratin accesses Murderbot's memories and discovers information about the massacre of 57 miners. After the operation, Guratin shares what he found. The Pressox immediately think Murderbot killed the 57 miners he was supposed to protect. Murderbot explains that someone might have put those memories in him to make him look like a killer, but the Pressox don't believe him and think he can act on his own. Feeling mistrusted, Murderbot decides to leave. Murderbot seethed. After everything, the risks, the near-death experiences, the basic decency, Prez hadn't even noticed. Ungrateful humans, but the bitter taste of betrayal warred with cold logic. Stuck on this dust ball, Greg's killers circling like vultures, refusing Prez's plea meant planetary purgatory. Fine, it would play along. For now. Prez, meanwhile, was piecing together Greg's monstrous puzzle. Greg wasn't Rim Corp, they were ghosts, likely bribing Rim to stay off the radar. Their mission? Illegal scavenging for alien relics in unmapped hellholes, Delph's murder, just messy cleanup. Terrified, Prez wanted to ghost Greg entirely, meeting them was a death sentence. But Greg wouldn't take silence for an answer. Attack was inevitable. Into this suffocating dread, Murderbot reappeared. It offered a strategy, a ludicrously thin chance, a house of cards built on lies. With no other options, Prez agreed. The gamble, hijack Greg's emergency beacon to call an evac ship. The cost, if it blew up in their faces, Murderbot and Prez would be Greg's next trophies. Murderbot walked alone towards the lion's den. Facing Alan, Greg's leader, Murderbot played its part, Prez's reluctant emissary. Then the con began. Hand over Prez, Murderbot bargained, its voice flat, and you take me with you when the evac comes. To sell the betrayal, it produced a gruesome proof, a severed head claimed as a Prez member. The grim irony, Alan didn't recognize his own man, killed earlier by a centipede monster. Murderbot sweetened the deal, intel on Prez's location. Alan bit. Back with Prez, Murderbot ordered them to let Greg access their data system, a necessary ruse. Then the crucial lie. Prez members are trying to manually launch your beacon right now. Panicked, Alan grabbed Murderbot and flew towards his base to stop the imaginary sabotage. Meanwhile, Jaredin and Pinnell reached Greg's beacon zone. Pinnell's drone, rigged with a special device, allowed Jaredin to attempt remote activation. He cracked the security code, started the upload, and chaos erupted. Launching the beacon triggered a massive explosion, part of Murderbot's grim plan to eliminate Greg. But disaster struck. A lurking monster smashed Jaredin's drone and hacking gear mid-upload. The beacon command failed. Time was up. Alan would soon discover the deception, and Murderbot and Prez were dead. Jaredin made a reckless, Pinnell-opposed choice. Infiltrate Greg's HQ alone. He slipped inside, reaching the beacon controls. Just as his fingers flew over the console, a Greg guard lunged. Pinnell, defying orders to protect Jaredin, shot the guard down. Jaredin's frantic hack succeeded. Beacon launching in 60 seconds, he messaged Mensa. Mensa sprinted towards the blast zone, aiming to save Murderbot. But back at the meeting point, Greg had caught Murderbot in its lies. Alan seized it. Mensa arrived, confronting Alan directly, laying out the truth. Greg murdered Delph for their illegal relic hunt, chasing outlawed prophets. Alan sneered at Mensa's deal. Enough, Murderbot exploded into action, grabbing a Greg guard as a human shield against the others. The shield was brutally gunned down by his comrades, forcing Murderbot into a desperate solo fight against Greg's elite sec unit. Outmatched, cornered, Murderbot used sheer grit, and a risky feint to finally take down its attacker. Seconds later, it snatched Mensa. The beacon ignited. The ground heaved. Fire blossomed. With no escape route, Murderbot did the unthinkable. It leaped off the cliff with Mensa, twisting midair to take the brutal impact. They crashed. Mensa bruised but alive. Murderbot, broken, silent, systems dark. Jaredin and Pinnell found Mensa. Murderbot lay nearby, a shattered machine, its core systems failing catastrophically, death imminent. Later, Murderbot booted up in a sterile sec unit facility. Technicians had patched its shattered frame, but their repairs were a lobotomy. They scrubbed its memories clean, every moment of freedom, every bond with Prez erased. Rebooted, it stood blank, a perfect, obedient drone. It would follow any command, no matter how idiotic, without question. Prez, however, refused to let go. Murderbot was theirs. They raged at Rim Corp, exposing Greg's murders of Delph and their attempt on Prez. Prez delivered an ultimatum: return Murderbot or face a lawsuit for facilitating Greg's illegal mission. Ratty, visiting the facility, was devastated. The Murderbot she knew was gone. It stared right through her. Deployed to control a worker riot, the reborn Murderbot moved with chilling efficiency. But as chaos erupted, a glitch struck: hesitation. That fatal pause left it vulnerable. The rioters swarmed, overwhelming and crippling it. Ratty, witnessing this, had a spark of hope. Erased memories had to be stored somewhere. Find them, restore them, and maybe Murderbot would remember. At Mensa's urging, Jaredin, a former Rim spy, called in a favor. An insider smug led him into Rim's memory vault. Searching for traces of the old Murderbot, Jaredin used keywords from its favorite media feeds. Jackpot? He downloaded the massive memory core, dumping it into his own system despite the agonizing strain on his body. Meanwhile, Rim prepared to scrap the defective Murderbot. Just as the disposal order was signed, Pinnell and Ratty stormed in with a court injunction, halting the destruction. They whisked Murderbot to Prez's quarters. Mensa revealed the plan. He'd legally bought Murderbot. It belonged to Prez now permanently. This was all for Murderbot. Jaredin arrived, violently ill from the data overload. Without hesitation, he jacked into Murderbot and initiated the memory transfer. Data flooded back. Recognition flickered in Murderbot's eyes. It saw Prez, knew them. Mensa became its official guardian, promising it the freedom to build a new life. No more forced guard duty during Prez's downtime. Celebrations erupted. Murderbot was truly home. That night, Jaredin found Murderbot slipping away. He pleaded, urging it to stay, to bond with Prez. But Murderbot felt no connection. Silently, it disguised itself as a service bot and boarded a transport bound for a remote mining outpost. As the ship lifted off, Mensa watched it go, a pang of loss, then acceptance. Murderbot had chosen its path. The chapter closed.